It's DTS 191, and we have some more details about those weekly rotational PvP playlists. Plus, who won the faction rally? I bet you'll never guess. All that and more coming up.
You're listening to Destiny, the show.
What's good, everyone, and welcome to Destiny, the show, the Destiny news podcast to keep you, the Guardian, ahead of the curve in the world of Destiny. I am BBKDRAGOON. I am joined, as always, by my great co-host, Ditty. It's like a DTS after hours, you guys. It is late in the evening. We never record this late at night, Ditty.
Yeah, I have a super jam-packed weekend of stuff, so thank you very much, BBK, for recording late at night on Saturday. I have a success story this week.
Oh, I would love to hear this.
Well, two parts, and they're unrelated, of course. Part one, I completed a week-long training course for work, and because of that, I'm eligible for a certification exam, or actually two certification exams, so I'll be taking those fairly soon. And I made my own Crunchwrap Supreme tonight.
Oh, my. How did you do it? And tell me all the details. Flour or corn tortilla?
Flour, because it retains its form more. Corn tortilla would just fall apart. I love corn tortillas, don't get me wrong, but it wouldn't work for this.
They lack the structural integrity of a flour tortilla. You don't need to sell me on that, I know.
So it's been a lot of experimenting. You need a burrito-sized tortilla, of course. I did not know that at first. I thought I could just use regular tortilla. Nope. But I actually bought the crunchy circle things. I don't know what they're called, but they're super cheap.
Tostadas.
Yeah, they're super cheap at the grocery store, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go buy a packet of those. And then so the construction was grated cheddar cheese, and then we don't do ground beef a lot because red meat is not something that we like to eat a lot. So we actually go to Trader Joe's. They have this beefless ground beef, and I know it sounds super gross, but for tacos, you season it right, it's great. Less greasy and tastes exactly the same. So cheese, the beefless, that's what I call it. More cheese, the tostada, the crunchy, and then you put, today we started something new. Instead of sour cream, you use plain Greek yogurt. Healthier, I guess. Couldn't tell the difference, so it worked. And then refried black beans. And then just folded it all up and butter in the skillet. It worked really well.
That sounds so good. Except, what is the beefless ground beef made of?
Soy,
like tofu beef?
Soy protein something. Yeah, it's not tofu.
Well, I disagree with you there. I mean, maybe chicken next time, dude. You guys do chicken, don't you?
So, yeah, I ran out of chicken. But the original, the first attempt was chicken as the taco meat with caramelized onions in it. So,
if we had a Trader Joe's sponsorship, this is where we would plug that right now. And you guys just think all we talk about is puppies and the weather in the introduction. Well, you are wrong. So
Trader Joe's sponsorship would be hilarious. I'm just going to do this one last tangent. The four things we get at Trader Joe's is chocolate fudge, their frozen orange chicken, actually 5 things, pot sticker sauce, and then the beefless ground beef. Those are the 5 things. 6 things. Pizza dough as well.
We don't have Trader Joe's here. Rub it in, man. Rub it in. I love Trader Joe's when you get to go there. There's so much good stuff. But now you get 5%. Like if you have an Amazon Prime card and you have a Whole Foods. You guys have Whole Foods down there?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Right across the street. What is it, like 5% off or 5% cash back or whatever now if you're a Prime member. Yeah. All that and more before the Robo stores. Which, by the way, have you seen that one in Seattle where you just go in, take what you want, and leave?
Yeah. That's crazy.
That is super crazy. I like the idea of it, but I wonder, like, those kind of innovations, what is that going to do to the job market? Like, for real. Like, that's why Amazon bought Whole Foods, I think.
Yep. Automation. That is the key. Robots are taking over.
I knew it. Skynet. All right, news. It's a rather short week, Ditty. The faction rally concluded. I'd never guess who would have won that event.
Of course, it's our overlords and dictators, the new monarchies guys. Red's my favorite color, but those little intros that they gave at the very first faction rally to introduce the ideologies behind each one kind of made me, maybe not New Monarchy, I'll do Future War Cult, but Future War Cult still has not won one. Congratulations to New Monarchy. Our good friend in the Discord, Jim, he was repping New Monarchy the whole week, all 3 characters. Congratulations to him. And, it begs the question, right? New Monarchy has won for the 3rd time in a row. Why? Why is New Monarchy still winning, right? Is it just the bad rewards, the bad ornaments on the other factions, or what's happening there? What do you think?
Executor Hideo looks exactly like Triple Wreck, and so I would always pledge to Triple Wreck. Always. That's not a question. Is that I was a New Monarchy guy all throughout Destiny 1. I went with Lakshmi because I liked her little 2-sentence thing. Okay, I don't like her colors, and I have to be careful because the last time I said that on the show, people were like, "What do you mean you don't like those colors? What's wrong with red, blue, and yellow, Dragoon? Really?" No, honestly, I was just thinking, wouldn't it be cool if you had a Mass Effect style dialogue wheel with some of the people in the tower? Like you could dig just a little bit deeper into the faction. I'm not talking about romancing Lakshmi, okay? What I think about and what you think about may be 2 very different things, good sir. But I would love to just ask a follow-up question of her and be like, so what is the history of your faction?
You want to learn more about Destiny lore, have some character prompts in game. Like having the character wheel, the choices to ask them. Yeah. It doesn't have to progress a storyline or change the ending of the game. It could just give you more information about that kind of thing. That stuff happens in Oblivion and Skyrim and Fallout, all those games, all those great Bethesda games. That happens all the time where you just see this character, 7 prompts, it just gives you information and nothing progresses, but it just gives you that background.
And even better, when Rahul gives you another piece of junk, you press R2 to go renegade and punch him in the face. I got really off track there. Okay, yeah, they won the faction rally, but the next event coming down the pipeline is Iron Banner, right? That's starting this week.
This week, yeah, begins Tuesday, March 6th and runs until Tuesday, March 13th. The game type is Clash 4v4, which I know is confusing if you read the TWAB because they talk about Iron Banner 6v6 implementations. This week, Iron Banner is 4v4 Clash, and we'll talk about the 6v6 changes here in a little bit. And then the progress towards the ornaments from the last Iron Banner carries over into this event as well. So you won't lose any progress if you didn't complete any of those ornament challenges things. You're gonna be able to pick up where you left off.
Yep, I love that direction, at least being able to carry over from event to event for those longer term engagements. Now for 6v6, this is not again coming with this event, but Iron Banner 6v6 is coming down the pipeline. With the intent of having, update 114 deploying before the end of the month. That's March 27th, is what we're assuming in what they've published previously. The match time limit for Iron Banner 6v6 is going to be 12 minutes. The score limit is going to see a bump to 125 points, and the respawn time is going to be a little bit longer, pushed back to 7 seconds. All control zones start off neutral, old school status, I like that. Control zones will take slightly longer to capture by default. Additional Guardians, a maximum of 3, in a zone increase the capture speed. So if you got 3 bros in there, no need to stack further. And Guardians participating in a capture get more super energy. Overall, I think this seems like very logical choices and adjustments to the gameplay. The longer respawn time of 7 seconds, I think, is probably to quell the assumed chaos that will be in 6v6 on some of these maps. There are some maps that are going to be very, very tight. You know what I mean, Ditty?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, I've said it in the shows before. 8 people in a map, it's pretty much max for me personally. I think it's too chaotic 6v6. That's how I felt throughout Destiny 1. But these settings, it does seem to a true return to form with a few sprinkles in there. Like the fact that Guardians participating in a capture get super energy, I think that's a nice incentive to jump on a capture point, because everyone always says, oh, it's control. No, people just play it like Clash anyways and just go for kills and don't worry about the objective. So it's a nice little incentive there. And I also think that, 6v6, people are going to enjoy it. It's going to be a little bit more chaotic, but like you said, the longer respawn timers are going to help offset that chaos a little bit. And I'm excited to see how it goes.
Endless Veil is going to be super cramped. 6v6 on Endless Veil. The Dead Cliffs, if 6v6 is going to be active for that map as well, is going to be super duper cramped. However, certain maps like Legion's Gulch that has the man cannon and the island, I don't know why they love the idea of islands, but like I think that map actually might play a little bit more fun with some additional people. I'm looking forward to testing this out. I think the biggest improvements that could come to PvP will be March 27th, what they do to the sandbox, and of course community and myself would like to see a little bit accelerated time to kill. I don't want to say all the community, but it's definitely been a voiced concern of many in the community. And I'm very much curious to see how that is going to impact 6v6. These early stages of 6v6 before the March 20th, well, I guess they're planning on having this live with 114. So 6v6 in this new sandbox, that's where I'm going to have to see how it plays out instead of trying to picture it right now with our current balance with additional players. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if it seems like, if it's successful enough, right, you would think Bungie has this notion of, well, if Iron Banner 6v6 works really, really well and everyone really likes it, let's take a look at introducing 6v6 Clash or other game types, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe that would get the ball rolling to introduce more of that as well.
So Rumble is returning as well with 114 as a rotational playlist. We kind of expressed our discontent last week with it being a rotational playlist. We'll touch about that in just a second.
It's coming back, so, I mean, well.
Yeah. No points for assists this time around. You get 1 point per kill. I like that. A lot cleanlier of a system. It's much more your typical FFA. The guy who's going to hit his 20 or 25 kills first is going to be your winner. Now, they did increase the player count to 8. I'm not sure as to why. If it's tied to maybe an engine thing, which I don't understand why it would be, because we've had doubles. If they thought 8 is the magic number for most of these maps. But again, I'll throw Endless Veil into the picture here, or the Dead Cliffs. You're going to be very close and comfortable with people on Rumble with 8 players on Endless Veil.
Yeah, the change to 8 is questionable to me. I know I just said 8 players on a map is ideal for me, but for Rumble, I think 6 is the magic number. However, with what you just said being tied to the maps or an engine type deal, maybe they tested 6. Well, I hope they tested 6, right? And then the games were just way too slow and not enough action happening. So they bumped it up to 8 to get the game flow a little bit more, what we're used to, or at least the pacing. And I don't know. I've never liked, ever since Halo 3, right? Halo 3 had Rumble Pit. It also had Lone Wolves. Lone Wolves was 6 players, and I loved that. But Rumble Pit was 8 players, and I just thought it was way too chaotic. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, considering, the maps kind of for Destiny 2 were built with 8 players in mind. But like you said, Endless Veil, just thinking about that example for 4v4, I mean, it's a team-based game. It's a symmetrical map-ish. And I don't know. It seems like it would be too much chaos.
I think about maybe Midtown or the Callous One, Emperor's Respite, Vostok, maybe even Altar of Flame. 6 people on those maps might not be, popping enough. Maybe 8 does, especially a map like Countdown, right, or Vostok, having 8 people is going to make it more populated. So I'm going to hold judgment off there until playing it. I would have loved maybe a sentence or two from Bungie about, hey, during playtesting, we found 8 was the magic number, and that's why we're going to this instead of just we bumped it up to 8. And maybe they had that planned and nobody got the word over at DMG or whoever wrote this week's TWA. But was it Cosmo or DMG this week?
It was Cosmo, I believe.
Okay, cool beans.
Yeah, because Cosmo's going to jury duty next week. So
Is he
the next TWAB is going to be DMG. That's what he said.
Nice. Mayhem is returning. It's going to be a weekly rotational, just like Rumble and Iron Banner 6v6. They did mention that Doubles is going into the garage for tuning and updates. We'll return later and add it to the weekly featured rotating playlist with other fun things. I don't know what they need to tune. I mean, maybe they never built a Doubles playlist outside of the Crimson Doubles like paradigm, so maybe that's what they mean by working on it.
Yeah, I think the buff this time around, it was a deviation from the original Crimson days, and I think that it just needs a few tweaks there. I don't know how long they need to make those changes. I would think a month would be good enough, but I guess they're going to change it or tune it for longer. Maybe they have other priorities on top of or before that. But yeah, I thought Doubles was fine this time around. There were a few things I wish they had changed, and I didn't think they would be that major enough to warrant such a longer hiatus.
Yeah. With all that said, let's talk about Nightfall scoring, Ditty. We got our first week with scoring for both the Prestige and normal Nightfall, and they went into a little bit more detail about some of the specifics, and we'll touch on that Q&A from the TWAB here in a second. Overall, I think you and I both agreed last week and throughout this week, the Nightfall scoring edition is a net win for the game. It's definitely a positive.
Yes.
There are a couple small question marks I scratch my head on, but overall, I'm fairly happy with the way it's turned out, minus a couple of things we'll touch on here in a second. Your thoughts as well?
Yeah, I agree. I think the Nightfall scoring is a great addition. It's more fun now, right? It's not just, oh, we need to complete it for the milestone or to get an engram or something. It's, yeah, my friend got 150,000 points. Let's see if we can beat him. It gives us that competition, right? So I really like that aspect.
Totally. So how do you actually get those Nightfall emblem variants, Ditty? You mentioned this in the show notes and clarified it with me before the show too. And when I was reading through the TWAB, it was clear but not totally clear. So if you could recap it for the listeners, that would be sweet.
Sure. So, of course, the Nightfall now rewards an emblem with different variants, right? Depending on certain milestones accomplished within that emblem or regarding that emblem, like killing, for example, the Crucible. We're talking about Nightfall. So for scoring purposes, you hit a certain threshold, you get a certain variant, right? These variants of the emblem are not guaranteed, right? And that was clarified in the TWAB. They say that the variants have a chance to drop from Nightfall completions. They're not related to challenges. They're not a guaranteed drop. The chance of acquiring this variant increases between 0% and 50% at specific score thresholds. So for this last week, it was for Tier 1, 20,000 points. That was that first increased chance to get that variant. Tier 2, 40,000 points. Another increased chance to get that variant. Tier 3, 60,000 points. And Tier 4, 80,000 points.
Gotcha. Now, those tiers, you can't actually see that info in-game. We just only know about it purely because of what they wrote about in the TWAB, right?
Yeah, exactly. And these tiers actually will change depending on the week and as they get more information about the Nightfall scoring, right? Whenever you introduce into something new like this for leaderboards or any type of scoring tier, they have to guess as to what would be a high or low threshold for specific activities. So this one, as they detailed, was just, experiments. They quoted in the TWAB, I thought this was actually really funny, we expect the community to be better than us. So we saw here the top score this last week as of the writing of the TWAB was over 200,000. So maybe they're going to increase that top threshold to be something that matches that a little bit better because with these tiers, I would expect a lot of the community to actually acquire that top tier, which shouldn't always be the case.
Gotcha. Speaking of that high score, you mentioned a pretty high watermark there for the score. Well, the rumbling is The secret strategy was send one of your team members into the lost sector, have them continually try and generate orbs within that lost sector while your other two party mates go through the strike, and you only get warped in at the boss fight. And I think that's been what's floating around currently is how that high score was hit. And I feel for Bungie because the only way I could foresee them blocking something like that is if they brought back Baby Bumper Atheon and put in place, I'm sorry, Atheon, put in place baby bumpers to keep you completely glued onto the strike pathway. You know what I mean? Invisible barriers or something.
Maybe not invisible barriers, but like tethering to your teammates, right? Think back to Halo 1, right? Whenever you're doing a story mission, if one of your teammates, you're doing co-op, they got too far in the mission, you were teleported on top of them. I mean, something like that might be implemented in the future.
Yeah. Do you remember in Reach, when you'd go out of bounds or just a little bit out of bounds, you'd have the countdown timer, the screen goes gray, and you need to get back in bounds?
They have that in Destiny 1 and 2. If you're walking out into the water, it'll tell you to turn back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think they tried to put some of that stuff. I can't even remember what some of those spots were on Reach maps. Anyway. Now, why were base Nightfall modifiers removed, Ditty?
So, I'm going to quote here from the TWAB. They wanted to emphasize core combat in the initial release of Nightfall scoring to let the community, quote, define the meta for high-scoring Nightfall runs, end quote. There you go. They didn't know. They didn't know what the multipliers or the modifiers needed or wanted them to be. They just wanted to see how the initial release get that initial data so that they can tweak those numbers and hopefully add that stuff back in the future.
A clean slate to start and then add garnish back in over time, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, there you go. I mean, I'm overall very happy with the system. It's a great starting place. Is it perfect? No. Is it where it needs to be for the rest of the lifespan of Destiny 2? No. But it's a cool little addition. I think if this would have been here at launch for D2, you would have seen a much greater probably engagement and attachment.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. In Nightfall. Whereas I think Nightfall in D2 has really lost a lot of the luster that it had in D1. And this, in many ways, could bring it back, especially for those players who care deeply about the high scores who want to make their way into the TWAB and have their name known for being the best at this strike, you know?
Yeah, I mean, what was that crew that won the Challenge of Elders for, 13 weeks straight?
They were so dedicated.
They were dedicated and legendary at that point, right? So this is the kind of thing that helps foster that type of competition within the community.
It makes a sub-community within the Destiny community. Granted, there are very competitive PvE players, but I would say in D1 you saw much more the press or the drive to solo bosses, to solo strikes, to do things like ridiculous challenge runs, that kind of a thing. And this can maybe at least add a little kindling to that small fire.
Yeah, the first time we saw a solo Crota run blew our minds.
Yeah.
And now it's like, yep, I'm going to go solo Crota now because it's that easy.
Yeah, and now you solo it with a potato clock in one hand while you're using a...
with a Rock Band drum set and one sword.
All right, then we move on to the bugs section here at the end. And this is from the raid team talking about the respawn bug within the Leviathan raid. A bug we are very familiar with, Ditty, because we have run into this many, many, many times, including the very first week of doing the Leviathan. We ran into it over and over again. So what are the details here?
So I'm just going to quote the TWAB because I think that's the best way to understand what's happening here. And they say, quote, the issue where players do not respawn in, quote, the Leviathan raid is a memory issue due to the size and complexity of the activity, and it will require a code fix. By the way, side note, they previously define different levels of fixes and their priority and length in order to get to a resolution. And a code fix is the longest and most difficult thing to fix in the game. So this is one of them. Continuing on the quote here, it is caused when a fire team splits up across large distances while others remain back and swap out their gear. This has seemed to be occurring more often in recent weeks because we have updated our loot tables in order to make the Leviathan raid a more rewarding experience, with more incentives to run too. We are still investigating a code fix for the problem. Second paragraph here. In the meantime, you can avoid this issue by sticking together as a team while trying out your sweet new loot. We realize that this is not an acceptable fix, but we wanted to give you info on how you can try to mitigate the issue while we work on it. If you do happen to hit this issue, even following those steps, then re-equipping the armor set you had when you spawned into the activity may return your Guardian to action. End quote. And I want to say, this is exactly what happened. Our first time we ran the raid, I'm going to call you out. Aura, when you put on the new Titan raid gauntlets or chest piece, your Guardian phased out and didn't spawn in and wouldn't let us begin the activity. So we told you, re-equip your old gear, and we found out, that worked. We can actually do the run now. So this has been such a long issue. So first of all, initial reaction, I appreciate the honesty.
Yes.
They said, it's a memory issue. When this happens in this activity, when you do this, here's a Band-Aid to the gaping wound in your side.
Yep.
We know it's not going to work, but it might work in the meantime while we fix it. So
I appreciate the explanation more than them not bringing it up.
yes.
I have to laugh a little bit when they're like, here, just stick real close together, be careful about swapping gear, and you'll probably be fine. Like, I got to laugh at that. It does feel a little funny in 2018. But on the other end of the coin, I appreciate hearing, we know the problem. Here it is. It's really hard to fix. It's on the list. But we can't tell you when it's going to happen because there are bigger things, like game-threatening things or whatever, that take priority over that.
Yeah.
I understand. We have a board at our office, Ditty, that all of the people who work there rely on the data that's on that board. And a long time ago, I was asked to set basically a spreadsheet up for this board and get data imported from another sheet, all this stuff. And I'm not a spreadsheet guy. Okay. So I got it set up, but it breaks very regularly. And the break occurs at a level that's far beyond me. I was just asked one time if I could get X data into Y cell. And then they made it one of their pivotal core things. So it breaks all the time. And I finally got to the point where people were asking continually for fixes of it. That, during our weekly big office meeting, I just told everybody, here's what's happening, step by step. I can't fix that. Here's a workaround until we can afford to buy a programmer who will do this for us. And that totally changed the whole atmosphere. Instead of having people coming to my office over and over and over again about that thing, there's an appreciation of look, we're not totally in the dark about it. There was a big tangent, I know. But do you kind of see the overlap I'm desperately trying to weave here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's 2 points I want to make. First off, on your explanation there, working in IT personally, when someone asks me why something just stopped working, I could give them a really technical reason, but that they're not going to understand because they don't work in IT. Mm-hmm. So I just say, I don't know, computers are stupid. That's my go-to line, right? And I'm sure if anyone listening works in IT, sometimes computers just stop working because they don't want to work. And it's because they're stupid. Just turn it off, turn it back on. Works fine. Don't know why I fixed it. Don't have the time to worry about it. But you're working now, so there you go. Second thing I want to say is, have you noticed, obviously the recent TWABs have been really great in communication. This one had some detail, not, as in depth as we've seen in previous weeks, but it's still good information. But it gives us information about multiple areas of Destiny. They talked about the next event that's happening. They talked about the next update. They talked about PvP changes. They talked about Nightfall scoring, and they talked about the raid stuff.
That's a good point.
That is not something that me personally am used to. I'm used to them just talking about Crucible, and that's it. Well, what happened to PvE over here? They're actually talking about multiple different angles of the game, and I think that's good.
I agree. You and I both want to see it succeed. And I think a lot of the listeners do. Most of the community here was built during Destiny 1, and a lot of us had great experiences in D1. I doubt anybody would probably get on the soapbox and say D1 was a perfect game. Far from it, but there was a lot of greatness within it. I really hope that Expansion 2 isn't dead on arrival. I hope it brings something with it, something heavy-hitting, like a Horde mode, or something just really polished instead of what I fear we're likely going to get. We're probably just going to get a short 2-3 hour story about Charlemagne. It'll be wrapped up in that entire time frame. 2 new strikes, a couple new maps, hopefully a raid layer. Anyway.
I don't want to win in a story mission. Like at the end of the story for DLC 2, I don't want to win.
Yeah, you don't want the story to be
I don't want it to be wrapped up with a nice little bow on top. Yay, we defeated the bad guy. What's next? I want that bad guy to stick around. I want him to kick my ass, and I want to come back with a vengeance. Mm-hmm. But it's, I don't know. Maybe that's me just dreaming.
Who knows? We'll probably start seeing PR for that expansion in April.
E3's in June.
E3 is in June. I hope Bungie honestly flushes the usual format that they have of 3 weeks of streams. I quite frankly would just throw it together in a Vidoc. Give yourself that kind of a runway. When you do a stream, it has to be so coordinated and planned ahead of time to do a good production. And while I do appreciate when they utilize that Twitch studio, when you're allowed to build a video, a 5 to 6 or 7 minute video featurette on this expansion, each member of the team can say exactly what they want to say. Instead of what we've seen in the past where somebody comes on stream and misspeaks, there's redactions later on, or the really awkward streams where clearly there's not enough content for an hour-long stream, yet they string along 8-9 minutes worth of stuff into an hour, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Put it into a really polished Vidoc format. That's one of those iconic pillars of Bungie. The Vidocs during the Halo days were something I just craved. They were amazing. So maybe bring that back into the fray. That's all the news from this week, Ditty. I think that's going to wrap up DTS 191. Where can people find your content, sir?
Twitter.com/DittyDTS, DITTYDTS, where I'll probably post a picture of that homemade Crunchwrap Supreme because it's really tasty. And YouTube.com/Wooshness, WOOOSHNESS.
Remember to join the discussion on our Discord, discord.me/Destiny the Show. All the links from today and more on our website, destinytheshow.com, and you can follow us on Twitter @DestinyTheShow. You can follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube @BBKDRAGOON. Thanks for listening, Guardians. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy Iron Banner, and we'll see you next time.